Okay, everyone, welcome. And here is B'nai B'rith World Center Director Alan Schneider, who will kick off the virtual book launch, Jews Saving Jews, part of collective Holocaust memory.
Thank you, Alex, and good evening to all of our panelists and participants from around the world. I want to particularly thank the Israelis and Israel observers on this call who are undoubtedly still preoccupied with the cliffhanging vote at our parliament, the Knesset, yesterday, that installed a new government under Prime Minister Naftali Bennett after a 12-year rule of Benjamin Netanyahu by a majority of just one vote. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone on this call in wishing the new Prime Minister much success and assure him of the strong support of B'nai B'rith that has been active in Eretz Yisrael since the founding of its first lodge here in Jerusalem in 1888, in his efforts to build strong Israel-diaspora relations and ensure the security and prosperity of the Israeli people. Aleh v'atzlach. It's my distinct honor to chair this program that has been organized to launch a new volume dedicated to the phenomena of rescue efforts by Jews during the Holocaust. The book, entitled All Our Brothers and Sisters, Jews Saving Jews During the Holocaust, includes 18 original articles by some of the most outstanding Holocaust researchers active today. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of the contributors who abided by the strict and short timetable that produced what I believe will be an important addition to the literature about a topic that for too long was not a well-identified and formulated focus of Holocaust research and historiography. I would like to give tribute to all the contributors, some of whom will participate later in the program in a panel discussion. They are, in order of appearance in the book, Alan Blitz, Lorenz Schramm, Doreen Stiven, Joel Kotek, Raymond C. Sun, Ben Braber, Hans Schippers, Patrick Henry, Sila Hershko, Nathan Bracher, Sylvia Guetta, Yitzchak Kerem, Gidon Greif, Avinoam Pat, Noah Gidron, Mordechai Paldiel, and Dalia Ofer. They're all members of the Jews Saving Jews Forum, one of a number of research focus groups operating in the framework of the Finkler Institute for Holocaust Research at Bar-Ilan University, and I believe the newest group that has been formed there. It was created at the initiative of the Committee to Recognize the Heroism of Jewish Rescuers During the Holocaust, of which I have the honor of being a founding member, established by Dutch Holocaust survivor Chaim Roth to serve as an academic advisory board for our committee's public activities, including the Jewish Rescuer Citation that has been presented jointly by the committee and the World Center since 2001 to over 350 Jews who risked their lives to rescue fellow Jews during the darkest times in Europe and North Africa. The book was initiated and propelled forward by one of Israel's leading Holocaust historians, Professor Judith Tydor Baumel-Schwartz, director of the Finkler Institute and professor of Jewish history at Bar-Ilan University. It is an honor for me to appear as co-editor with Professor Baumel-Schwartz, who was a great partner in bringing this volume to press. She also contributed a thoughtful introduction and her own chapter about her father's experience in Buchenwald. Judy will sum up today's session. Before I introduce our next speaker, I would like to thank all the members of the Committee to Recognize the Heroism of Jewish Rescuers During the Holocaust, who have been my partners over 20 years in promoting public awareness in Israel and abroad about Jewish rescue. I would also like to thank B'nai B'rith CEO Dan Mariashan and B'nai B'rith World Center Chairman Dr. Chaim Katz for their encouragement in making this a focus of my own work in the interest of rectifying the historical record and giving appropriate recognition to these heroes who have been a great inspiration to me personally and should inspire generations to come through their commitment to Jewish and human solidarity. I also want to thank our partners at the Jewish National Fund, including Dudu Ashkenazi and Eli Adid, with whom we have conducted for the past 16 years the largest annual commemoration of the heroic actions of Jewish rescuers at the B'nai B'rith Martyrs Forest on Yom HaShoah. and our partners at Yad Vashem, including Director General Dorit Novak, who have made Jewish Rescue a feature theme at Israel's premier Holocaust Remembrance Center over recent years. It is now my pleasure to introduce Attorney Aryeh Barnea, recently installed chairman of the Committee to Recognize the Heroism of Jewish Rescuers During the Holocaust, for opening remarks. Aryeh is a longtime activist on behalf of Holocaust survivors and serves as chairman of AMCHA, the Israeli Center for Psychological and Social Support for Holocaust Survivors and Second Generation. He is a scholar, having authored 3 books, 2 on the Holocaust, an educational innovator, having founded and chaired Lapid, the movement for transmitting the lessons of the Holocaust, a former high school principal, and currently a Hebrew University lecturer. Aryeh, bevakasha.
Thank you very much, Alan. If I ever forget any detail regarding my own biography, I shall ask you. And I would like to especially thank you and Judith for your special role in making this newly published book reality. Thank you, all the scholars that have contributed to this important book. I think that it is enlarging our knowledge worldwide regarding the phenomenon of Jews saving Jews. Why is it important in our eyes? For scholars, it is important because it is of interest to them. And the university or any other institution enable them to handle such research. But for the public, for Israel's society, for the Jewish people, for humanity, it is important because those people who took part in rescuing other Jews contributed to our understanding about human capability, about its borders, which are much broader than we had thought. People made the impossible, which it seems possible today. We want youngsters all over the world to learn from those heroes how one can find in his or her heart courage, enthusiasm, commitment in order to realize the most important values we believe in: human life and existence of the Jewish people. And one may learn from them how to behave in time of crisis and other times as well. Not only crisis, not every crisis is a Holocaust, but we can learn from behavior during the Holocaust ideas and lessons that are relevant to our life today and tomorrow. I would like to emphasize one aspect of the rescue, which is failure. In most cases in our lives, we are looking for an outcome, for a result, for success. As far as rescuing lives is concerned, what we want to see is a history in which it's not Hitler that wins, but the Jews win, the persecuted people all over the world. We want to see those rescuers succeed. We want to see survival. But in cases in which the effort seems impossible, I would like to concentrate on it. I would like to emphasize right now, and not only in this important discussion, the idea according to which Jews who succeeded in making the effort should be our heroes. In some cases, they succeeded in saving lives. In other cases, they failed, but their failure is so heroic that we should salute them for trying. We could not think prior to the Holocaust, and even those heroes themselves could not think 1 year earlier that they will be able, at the age of 18 or 20, to forge documents, to lead groups across the border, to do things that seemed impossible. We better understand human nature. And we also understand that the Jewish people, under such impossible conditions, was more active than we had thought, not only Jews who shot the Nazis with their rifles should be our heroes, but also and primarily those Jews who did their best at rescuing lives. And I remember always, together with you, the Talmudic verse according to which, in a place where there are no human beings, strive to be a human being. It does not tell us be human beings, but strive to be human beings. The effort is the main element. And maybe we should rephrase that ancient verse by saying, in a place where there are no human beings, strive to be a mensch. Thank you.
Thank you, Aryeh. It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce Rabbi Professor Simon Schwarzfuchs, who is a recipient of the Jewish Rescuer Citation this year for a special presentation. Professor Schwarzfuchs is a distinguished teacher of Jewish history. He served as head of the Department of Jewish History and Dean of the Faculty of Humanities at Bar-Ilan University and taught at the Practical School for Advanced Studies, EPHE, in Paris, and authored over a dozen books, mainly on the history of Jews of France. Professor Schwarzfuchs was born in 1927 in Bischheim, France. With the expulsion of Jews from Alsace-Lorraine under the German occupation, his family moved to the city of Limoges, where he became active in numerous branches of the Jewish resistance movement from 1942 until 1944. In the period before the June 1944 Allied landing in Normandy, the Maquis groups of the Jewish resistance fighters provided a hiding place for young Jews who escaped the Nazis, and especially for Jewish resistance members sought by the Gestapo. Members of the group used their connections in the area to find local hiding places for Jews, including children without parents. Professor Schwarzfuchs also participated in an Allied parachute collection operation. On August 19, 1944, Professor Schwarzfuchs took part in an attack on a train in southern France loaded with German soldiers and weapons. He was with the Maquis forces who entered the city of Castres after the German garrison surrendered. He was made a Knight of the French Legion of Honor in recognition of his bravery in opposing the Nazis. It's my honor to ask Professor Schwarzfuchs to address us. I think you need to unmute. Professor, please unmute. Oh, there we are.
In 1944, the Germans and the French Vichy allies were very active in trying to trace Jews and arrest them. You have to remember that many of the Jews lived in their family, and it was practically impossible to hide a family. So the families have had to split up and to find places or fuses which would help them to survive. At that time, the Jewish Scouts movement, which had opened a number of farms, had decided to set up a Jewish resistance movement place, a Maquis, in the south of France. And we heard one or another that such a thing was possible. It is that they decided to try to join them and become part of this resistance movement. It had the great advantage to be at the same time a place to fight the Germans and also to escape the police attacks which were going all the time. But joining a Maquis was a very problem. Everybody was afraid of spies and people who speak too much. And so you could not get to one only by personal contact. So it happened that I got in touch with one of the leaders of the French Jewish Scout movement, and he told me where to go from Limoges to the city of Castres, which is about 200 miles away from it. And I went there. My parents had found a place where to hide. My sister had passed out to Switzerland. My brother was in Spain. I was then on my way to the market. I must say that travel at that time, 200 or 300 miles was quite a problem. There was no bridge, no railroad which had not been bombed. It took me, for this distance, nearly 3 days to arrive to the south of France and to go to a place where I had been told one thing. On even days, you go from 11 to 12 to Park A. On other days, you go to Park B. So I went to Park A to meet somebody whom I did not know. I was only there that I heard my name, because the person I was supposed to meet, she knew me. I knew her too, but I had no idea that she was there and that she was taking part in the resistance movement. So we recognized and decided with me I would go to the Maquis the next morning, and I would take a train. I would take a train, and a guide, a girl, Romano, would take the same train, but not in the same car. And I should pay attention when she goes out from there, and that to go out from the car a short time after her, but not at the same time. So this is what I did, and then she took me for a long walk, and we got to the Maquis, and that was the great surprise to find 20 or 30 Jewish boys, youngsters or young men, who were there and tried to train for the war. This was my great surprise. I remember there I could even touch, and later on use a Sten gun, the English gun, which was so delicate that you had to be very careful when you used it. This was my first great surprise. The Maquis was set in an abandoned farm where a number of young Jews met together. We went to about 20 to 30 people. There were always people coming and people going. There are some people who tried to go there to the Spanish border, but there were some decided to remain there and to protect the Jews who would need them. And then we had the normal life of a Maquis began. There were high points. One of the high points was the planes coming and parachuting the equipment we needed. A very high point, because we were going out at night and to wait for the plane to come, and we could not understand how it could not manage. At the time, we thought the planes were coming from England, but became clear that they came from Algeria. We were there, you waited 1 hour, 2 hours, and then you heard the sound of a plane coming. And the plane passed over the fire which had been put on, recognized us, and parachuted whatever he had to parachute. This was the first time in years that we had a contact with somebody who had not been under German occupation. We had a feeling that we were part of the world, and that the world was fighting there, that we could be part of the fight. Later on, we had also two meetings, if I may say so, with the Germans, and we had a few of our people were killed. My residence unit was completely Jewish. Everybody was Jewish. I don't think there was another case in the history of the Second World War of a unit which was 100% Jewish. We could not even accept all the candidates to be part of this unit. So a number of Jews who wanted to join us were forced to join non-Jewish units which were in the same region. And so it happened that we were there, 87 Jews, and the number of the partisans there was 139. Most of the officers were Jewish. The under-officers were two, but all in all, we were 87 Jews among 100, in the whole unit counted 138 members. We had to be feeling we were in a way at home. We could feel, express ourselves, move freely. That did not prevent the Germans from trying to attack us, which they did, and we had a number of people who were killed. I would like to add an incident which occurred there at the end of staying in the Maquis is that when we had German members. It so happened in the beginning of May 44, not May, August 44, that 3 German soldiers, not SS, but soldiers that nevertheless deserted from the German army and tried to join the partisans because they were afraid of being killed, shot down by their commanders. So they joined us, and everybody was a bit afraid. Are they bona fide partisans, or are they? It was decided that the Jewish unit would be in charge of the Germans. As the commander said, at least we know you shall pay attention to whatever they did. It was decided to have a court-martial for them to see if they had helped the Germans as they were suspected. And you'll be surprised, the court-martial decided there is no reason to believe that they had helped the Germans, so they stayed with us until the end of the operation this down, and they moved to other place, I don't know where. One of them was seen as a driver for a French officer, but being in charge of German deserters was certainly not one of the aims of going to the Maquis. Their life was strange there. Nothing normal happened, but we were happy that we have been able and to escape and to join the fight against the Germans.
Well, thank you, Professor Schwartz, folks, for this fascinating presentation. I, for one, had never heard of German deserters who joined a Jewish French resistance.
We had our Hans.
What's that?
We had our Hans.
Yeah, Hans. Well, thank you very much. We're now going to move to the next part of the program, and that is a panel discussion among 6 of the book's contributors that will focus on the question, has the concept of Jews saving Jews become part of collective Holocaust memory? And Dr. Gidon Greif, a noted Holocaust historian, senior lecturer, and researcher at the Faculty for Judaic Studies at Ono Academic College, and chief historian and researcher at Shem Olam Institute, will introduce our panelists and moderate the discussion. So Gidon, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening. In the next 45 minutes, we will conduct a round-table discussion related to the topic of rescuing Jews by Jews during the Holocaust. Allow me to present our distinguished scholars participating in this round-table.
Okay, so the first thing I have to do is I did some financial research. I have everything together. And it's only this one little thing that's left.
Can everyone mute?
So I'll take care of it. Okay. Yes. Yes, definitely. Okay.
Someone is not muted. Can everyone please mute? Thank you. Gidon, can you?
Okay, I will repeat. In the next 45 minutes, we will conduct a round-table discussion related to the topic of rescuing Jews by Jews during the Holocaust. Allow me to present our distinguished scholars participating in this round-table discussion. Professor Patrick Henry is Emeritus Professor of Philosophy and Literature at Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington State, where he taught French and French literature. He has written widely on the rescue of Jews in France during the Holocaust. And in 1914, his monumental edited volume, Jewish Resistance Against the Nazis, was published by Catholic University Press. Professor Henry contributed to the volume on an article on Osé fieldworker Madeline Dreyfus. Dr. Tzila Hershko holds a doctorate in history and is a senior researcher at Bar-Ilan University Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies. She has published widely on Zionism, France, and the Jewish resistance movement in France during the Holocaust. She is active in the public committee to establish a museum of the Jewish fighter during World War II and in the committee to recognize the heroism of Jewish rescuers during the Holocaust. She is author of Those Who Walk in Darkness Will See the Light on the Jewish resistance in France during the Holocaust and the creation of Israel. Dr. Tzila Hershko contributed to the book an article on women in the Jewish resistance in France. Professor Dalia Ofer, Professor of Holocaust and Eastern European Studies at Hebrew University of Jerusalem. She is recipient of the Distinguished Achievement Award in Holocaust Studies from Northwestern University and directed the Harman Institute of Contemporary Jewry and Vidal Sassoon International Research Center for the Study of Anti-Semitism at Hebrew University. Professor Ofer has been a visiting professor at Harvard, Yale, and Brandeis, and has published extensively on the Holocaust, Holocaust memory, and immigration to Israel. Professor Dalia Ofer contributed an article on immigration and illegal immigration to Israel during the Holocaust. Dr. Mordechai Paldiel is a Holocaust survivor and leading scholar of the rescue of Jews during the Holocaust. He authored an epic volume on Jewish rescue in 1917 called Saving One's Own, Jewish Rescuers During the Holocaust, and numerous other books and articles on the rescue of Jews during the Holocaust. He served for 25 years as director of the Righteous Among the Nations Department at Yad Vashem, overseeing the induction of some 18,000 into the roles of non-Jewish Holocaust rescuers. Mordechai Paldiel currently teaches at Yeshiva University, Stern College, and at Touro College in New York. He is active in the committee to recognize the heroism of Jewish rescuers during the Holocaust. Paldiel contributed an article on the Bernese group in Poland. Professor Raymond Ray C. Sun received his PhD in modern German history from Johns Hopkins University in 1992. He is an associate professor of history at Washington State University at Pullman, Washington, where he has taught since 1991. His research and teaching interests center on the issue of war and society, memory of war and genocide, and the Holocaust, especially rescue. He is attempting to establish a Holocaust and genocide concentration at his university, and his personal research is a study of rescue in the Netherlands. Ray contributed an article on gender, faith, and the conflicted legacies of a Dutch rescuers. Dear friends, allow me to present the 6 questions I have prepared for this evening, and the one who would like to answer of our scholars just will be able to do so. Question number 1 reads as following. What do you think the issue of rescuing Jews by Jews during the Holocaust has been? Why do you think the issue of rescuing Jews by Jews during the Holocaust has been marginalized for so long? Why has the subject not aroused interest and was neglected for so many years? Who would like to start? Please, Dr. Hershko.
Thank you very much. I'll present 2 major explanations to the marginalization of the issue. Firstly, Israel's Yad Hashem law of 1953 includes the commemoration and honoring of the righteous among the nations and non-Jewish people who rescued Jews. The law didn't refer to the Jewish rescuer since the rescue of Jews by Jews was taken for granted. In addition, the Jewish rescuers themselves also believed that they had only performed their duty and didn't ask to be honored for their accomplishments. Secondly, the marginalization of the issue could also be explained in terms of collective memory, which does not include only the historical facts, but to a great extent reflects present political and social considerations, as well as aspiration for the future. I will introduce as an example the French attitude towards the Jewish resistance in France, whose members contributed significantly to the rescue of 3/4 of French Jewry during the Holocaust. Their accomplishments are completely ignored by the French authorities. They attribute the rescue solely to the French righteous among the nation, even though the Jewish members were often the driving force behind the rescue. The French authorities underlined that the French righteous served the honor of France. That's one reason why, which explains from this standpoint, the existence of a separate Jewish resistance is is not compatible and was often identified with the term for the tribal and communal loyalty. So we see how our social and political considerations are involved in the marginalization of Jews who rescue Jews. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tzila Hershko. Who would like to add?
I would like to add, Professor Greif, if I may.
Yes, please, Dr. Paldiel.
For so long. First of all, there was a period of silence by survivors. For many, many decades, for at least 40 years or so, people didn't talk about the Holocaust. They didn't tell their stories. It was not popular, to put it mildly, to recite how they survived and what they went through. So that's one reason why it took so long. The other reason, the most powerful reason, is that the story of Jewish rescuers of Jews went against the, at the time, acceptable Zionist ethos of the Shlilat HaGalut, the negation of the diaspora, in which Jews were portrayed as being helpless in the diaspora. And whenever something happened to them, the Jewish response was to lay low, to weather the storm, to try to negotiate, to use mediators, shtadlanut, and not to fight back. That was the image that was portrayed during the
by the Zionist movement in the early period of the State of Israel. And what was emphasized was the Maccabean heroism and resistance. David and Goliath, Bar Kokhba, Masada. That is what Jews should really be. And in the Galut, in the diaspora, Jews are totally helpless. And so that did not encourage telling stories that Jews were not totally helpless, but they created rescue networks and they saved thousands of Jews that went against this Zionist ethos. I remember in Israel on Hanukkah, everybody in the kindergarten, they were playing Handel's famous song, Welcome to the Hero. Yehuda Maccabi, that was the symbol. And therefore, that's why the story of Jews rescuing Jews was marginalized for so many long years.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paldiel. Who else would like to add to this? Yes, Professor Ofer, please.
Yeah, well, you know, we can say, we can count everything on the Zionist approach as you, Paldiel, did it. I think that it's too much. I think that we should pinpoint more to the question of understanding the Holocaust, of understanding the reality of the Holocaust. And I think that it took many years. I mean, survivors talked. They talked in different places. They talked in different opportunities. And we know now that the silence is kind of a generalization that doesn't really work with the reality. But I think that the difficulty of understanding the situation of the Holocaust and the strong sense of the powerlessness of the Jews, all Jews, Jews outside of occupied Europe, Jews in the US, Jews in the Yishuv, all this contributed to the issue that you are looking to understand the reality from different perspectives. And I think that only when we understood better we started to understand resistance, and when the coin of resistance was not anymore armed resistance, but rather what Yehuda Bauer named Amidah, I think that or standing up, I think that only at that point there was a wider understanding of what we are talking about. So I would really put it in a wider approach and not only go to the regular kind of Zionism ideologies. People believe in ideologies, but still ideologies are not the only factor that create our reality.
Thank you, Professor Ofer. Who else would like to add to this question, number one? No one. So
I would just like to move.
No, Raymond.
Yes, just very briefly. And from a slightly different perspective, I think if we look at popular culture and the sort of memory which is propagated there, I'm thinking of major films about the Holocaust. Schindler's List was enormously influential in the United States, and I assume it reverberated elsewhere. And so you have this image of Jews, when Jews are rescued, it is by non-Jews. And there are documentaries that speak to a slightly smaller audience that also emphasize rescue by Christians, or at least secular outsiders. So I think this is how popular perceptions and memory are also formed, and you can't undervalue the role of this popular media.
Thank you, Professor Sun. Let us move to question number 2.
If I may add,
I'm sorry, Dr. Paldiel, our time is very, very limited.
Okay,
we still have many questions. Sorry. Question number 2. Among various circles, the issue of rescuing Jews by Jews raises some opposition and is accepted with reservations. What do you think are the reasons for this, and how can the reservations be overcome to make the issue acceptable? Who would like to be first? in answering this question, number 2.
Well, if I may again,
yes, please.
The common answer that I heard at Yad Vashem and elsewhere is, Yisrael arevim ze leze, a Jew is obligated to help a fellow Jew. So there's nothing to talk about. They were simply doing their duty, their obligation. What was not mentioned is, yes, sure, Jews are obligated to help fellow Jews, but is this to be done also at the risk of one's life? There are many rabbinic disputes about that. And even in the halakha, there's no uniform decision that you are obligated to risk your life to help a fellow Jew. But that was the standard explanation, that Jews helping Jews, that is something that was expected of them. And therefore, there was nothing to underline. Whereas Gentiles who help Jews, and the position in Israel was that most Gentiles do not like Jews. So if Gentiles stand out and help Jews, they are to be honored. So I also wanted to add that even at Yad Vashem and Lochamei HaGetaot, what they glorified and they saluted are the ghetto fighters, the partisans, those that took guns and shot at the Germans. We have to understand that. I'm not criticizing Israel. Israel was born in war. And Israel, since the establishment of the State of Israel, had to contend with the Arab countries. And so the essence of fighting, of standing up and shooting back. And that's why the emphasis was made on the ghetto fighters and the partisans. And people who helped other people to survive, that was not such a big deal. And therefore, there was nothing to talk about this. And that's why it was left out.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Paldiel. Yes, let us hear people who haven't yet expressed themselves.
Patrick,
yes.
Unmute yourself.
Patrick, Professor Henry, please.
Yeah, okay. I just want to add to all these comments that are just so lucid, and I'm learning so much from all of them, that we need, in order to make it more acceptable, we need to insist that rescue is resistance, to put it at the heart of resistance. If resistance to what Hitler wanted to murder the Jews. Rescue was the most successful form of resistance if resistance means saving Jewish lives. Remember Tuvia Bilski saying, there are so few of us left, saving a Jew is more important than killing a German. And from my research, I have found that 3 million Jewish people survived the Holocaust in Europe, and between 5 and 10% of them were rescued. So we're talking about somewhere between 150,000 and 300,000 Jewish lives. This needs to be presented, how successful rescue was, how important it was to saving Jewish people. And that Jews were and to a later question, I will say that Jews were a part of every rescue mission by non-Jews in France that I could see. They were an integral part of it. So maybe that would help to make it more acceptable.
Thank you very much, Professor Henry. Who would like to add to question number 2?
Can I say
please.
something? I spoke before, but so you are the...
Please.
Okay. I think I agree to what has been said here. And again, I think that it is important to see rescue and resistance, but in some respect, the search for resistance obstructed to understand how important rescue was until a certain stage in the research of the Holocaust that I've mentioned before. I want to mention now two other methodologies in the writing of history, and of course, history of the Holocaust is part of history in general that assisted in this. One, I think, is the importance that we put now to the individual sources, diaries, memoirs, personal letters that were written during the time and just after the time, what is called the ego documents. I think the fact that we are now, unlike, let's say, Hilberg or other writers of the Holocaust, of the history of the Holocaust in the past, that did not really evaluate this, that it's subjective, it's not really, doesn't tell us. So this is one point. And with this, and I think this really comes prior, is the importance of microhistory. Now, the article of you on Ose and France, I think that it really is one of the examples where you take a story of one person, you follow the person from a wide perspective, but it is connected to the microhistory. So the idea that we can use a lot of microhistory, not as examples, but as an essence in writing the history of the Holocaust, gives room now to a lot of the stories that before were kind of put, was not forgetful, perhaps, didn't forget, but was put aside. So it's a combination of concept, methodology, the process of understanding the Holocaust, and of course the awareness that other genocides also contributed to understanding the Holocaust.
Thank you,
So
Professor. Thank you very much, Professor Ofer. Other opinions concerning question number 2? No. So let me read question number 3. What aspects do you think should be highlighted within the complex of the issue of rescuing Jews by Jews in the framework of educational activities? The emphasis on educational activities. Please, who would like to be the first?
I would like to.
Tzila, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, it is a chapter in the history of the Holocaust that took place throughout all the Nazi-occupied territories and should not be ignored or forgotten. I would also like to underline the role of women in the rescue. They performed the most dangerous missions since the Nazis could not prove their Jewish religion as their circumcised Jewish comrades. And now another point of view, this chapter of Jews who rescue Jews is important as an inspiring educational heritage for the future generations, instilling values such as security, solidarity, caring for the others, unity, and the struggle against evil. The rescuer could have survived with relative security due to their forged document. However, they chose to put their lives at risk each day and each moment for the sake of saving the lives of other Jewish men, women, and children. So these are the two points which I think are very important to underline.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tzila Hershko. Yes, please, who would like to add?
Yeah, I would like to add something, please. I worked for 24 years on the righteous Gentiles, righteous among the nations. I would like to draw a distinction between the rescuers, the non-Jewish rescuers and the Jewish rescuers. Most non-Jewish rescuers responded to an appeal by Jews to help them. Irena Sendler and so forth, even Oskar Schindler, who was mentioned here, came to Poland in order to enrich himself and was in charge of a company, and Jews appealed to him and he decided he was going to save them. And of course, they deserve all of our appreciation and gratitude. Jewish rescuers did not wait for an appeal by Jews on the run. Jewish rescuers took the first step in the direction of rescuing. As Abraham Polonsky in France did not wait for people to come to him and say, help us. He made the first move and he created the clandestine organization. So Jewish rescuers decided at the start that they were going to do something to help fellow Jews and not wait for fellow Jews to come up to them with cries of help. So that's the major distinction between Jewish rescuers and non-Jewish rescuers, both of them who deserve our thanks and gratitude.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paldiel. Yes.
Add to the highs note that the Jewish rescuer, they were those who supplied the forged documents, the money, they visited the coupons of food. So they were the initiators and the force behind the rescue activity. So, and in each of these missions, so it wasn't enough for them to bring the convoys of children to the hiding places, but they came to visit the children or the hidden person each month, and I think, and risking their lives in this month, in this with these activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have scarcely heard you, Professor Raymond Chan. Would you like to add something to this point?
Well, if the question is about education, I think it would be really useful to bring in into the classroom, obviously films, but there are increasingly some books, mostly directed at a popular audience, that actually address Jewish rescue. I was going to mention this for one of our later questions, but I'll bring it up now. Even in the United States, 2 books have just come out in the past 2 months, I think, about this. One is The Light of Days by Judy Battalion, I think. And the other, My Name is Selma, by a Dutch Jewish woman who was in the resistance. And, you know, I found out about the latter one by listening to a popular political commentator and comedian. Americans, at least, will recognize him, Trevor Noah. So this is becoming more widespread in the popular culture, which is hopeful. So you can bring in these popular accounts of Jews rescuing Jews, which I'm sure all the scholars here are extremely familiar already with what these works cover, but for the students, it will be new. Just integrating that and sort of expanding the repertoire of what's used in the classroom besides the standard, wonderful but standard works of Anne Frank or Elie Wiesel or Primo Levi and such like this, to actually introduce this concept would be very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Professor Henry, would you like to say something on this?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Aspect? Okay, so allow me to read number 4. From the long list of Jews rescuing Jews during the Holocaust, could you choose, please, the most inspiring figure in your eyes?
Oh la la.
Oh la la.
Oh la la.
Professor Hershko, voilà. S'il vous plaît.
Yes, I would like to underline that all the hundreds of the members of the Jewish resistance performed unique, inspiring missions of rescue. I find it very difficult to name the most inspiring figure. Nonetheless, it seems appropriate to name Avram Polonsky as one of the most prominent rescuers. He was the visionary who understood from the beginning of the German occupation the need to create an organized underground for rescue of Jews. He understood the need to refrain from registering with the authorities as Jews. He was the driving force or figure behind the establishment of various rescue and resistance activities, including military resistance. And now another point, which is very important, at the end of the war, Polonsky was appointed by Ben-Gurion as the commander of the Haganah in France and North Africa. In this framework, Polonsky and other veterans of the Jewish resistance contributed to the struggle for the creation of the Jewish state in Eretz Israel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, who else would like to say something?
I would like to mention Walter Suskind in Amsterdam, who held an important position in the Dutch theater, where many Jews were retained before they were sent to Westerbork and from there to Poland to the death camps. He was in charge of the Dutch theater, and he found ways to smuggle hundreds of Jews, including children, out of this retaining place in collaboration with Dutch rescuers who were honored by Yad Vashem. He stayed on until the end, although he was offered a hiding place, and then was sent to Auschwitz, and he died on the death march of Auschwitz in January 1945. There was a bridge in Amsterdam named after him, Walter Suskind, originally from Germany, who then went to live in the Netherlands, and during World War II saved, some say, up to 1,000 Jews in collaboration with Dutch rescuers, non-Jewish rescuers, Walter Suskind.
Thank you very much. Professor Ofer, would you like to tell us whom you choose?
No, I couldn't. I really thought of it a lot and I raised my hand. I couldn't.
Okay.
Sorry. Too many faces, but
next time you will tell us.
Professor Henry, I'm not able to do it.
It's okay. Thank you, Professor Henry.
My experience is so much more limited than the other speakers. So, and I'm limited to France, where I've done all my work. But Madeline Dreyfus is a Jewish woman with the most identifiably Jewish name in the country without any false papers. She had such incredible bravery. She brought about 100 children safely to the area of Le Chambon-sur-Lignon before she was arrested and deported to Bergen-Belsen. So she's a living memory.
Is your choice. Thank you very much. Professor Sun, do you have anybody in mind?
I mean, this was a very hard pick. And, you know, I would, of course, say anyone who was a rescuer. Someone who recently came across my attention was, she recently passed away, Faye Shulman, who was both in the armed resistance in Eastern Europe and also a photographer. And just the combination of her skills in fighting with the partisans and also using her photography skills to document what she saw was just remarkable. And so I would make her my favorite.
Thank you. Allow me to tell you what my choice is. I would choose Aaron Mencher from Vienna, who rescued many Jewish children. He also could have saved himself. He was in Eretz Israel, but decided to be with the children until the last moment. Aaron Mencher is my choice. Question number 5. What would you recommend to do so that the issue of rescuing Jews by Jews during the Holocaust becomes more interesting and more attractive and arouses more curiosity among the younger generation? Who would like to start? Please.
I'm ready to.
Dalia, of course, ladies first, please.
No, I mean.
Then we will give Professor Sun also the word, please.
Okay, I think that I would try to combine the issues of resistance and rescue, and I would like also to combine the issue of rescue or between Jews and non-Jews, and to show that in each case that one took this initiative, it was never obvious, and it demanded a lot of courage, creativity, and a sense of strong belief that you really have to live according to your own values, would it be religious or humanistic or whatever it would be. And I think that if we combine it and we take the Jewish heroes and the non-Jewish righteous of the nation, and we even try to put it into our own reality, not necessarily Israel, could be in Israel, could be, we have so many issues. So I would combine this because it is from the educational point of view and from the research that calls for comparison and to see the differences and the similarities and differences and so on, to have a complex and nuanced description that would make the whole issue interesting, challenging, question, and then people will go into it.
Thank you so much. Professor Sun, now is your turn.
Yes. I'll just approach this from a much more technical perspective. I think the Holocaust Museum in Washington has done a great job of creating very short, like maybe 3 to 5 minute videos that introduce an example of the topic. So they have a series on material artifacts or memory or whatever, and they put this out to Facebook Live. And since the question is about how to attract a younger audience, these are the media they're consuming. This is the attention span that they have. The museum also gives maybe 15-minute, slightly more in-depth talks to their historians about a given topic. But I think this would be a great way to just attract interest, and then of course there's various means to pursue that further. But a series of 3-minute, 5-minute tops, videos highlighting a rescuer or a situation or whatever would, I think, be very helpful.
Thank you. Who else would like to add?
I would like to add.
Yes, please, Zila.
Yeah. Okay. I think that this chapter in the Holocaust is interesting, attractive, and impressive. The story just has to be told throughout a variety of educational and media channels. In my opinion, the story of the Jewish rescuers is all the attractive components of dramatic stories: suspense, adventure, courage, ordinary people who became heroes in certain circumstances, human moving stories about ordinary people who acted when needed as heroes, fighting against the wicked. Most of them in the Jewish resistance were young people, and some of them were teenagers. Thus, the story of the Jewish rescuers contained characters with whom the young people can identify. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And here we come to the sixth and last question for tonight. Allow me to read it.
Professor Henry would like to address
Oh,
that
yes.
last.
Sorry. Yes, please.
That's okay. No, just one short remark. I have found it very useful since 2016 in my teaching to let people realize that I live in an area in Washington where 25% of the people are Mexican. They're agricultural workers. And since 2016, the hundreds of them who are undocumented. I bring up the issue of these people are going to be deported. It has served as a great gateway into the Holocaust to ask them what their feelings are toward people living in this area deportable. And we know that for a couple of years anyway, the people who saved Jews didn't know what was awaiting the Jews. They just did it for humanitarian reason. I asked my students to put themselves in this, and that has made them so much more aware of what was happening during the Holocaust.
Thank you, Professor Henry. We come to the sixth and last question, which is, each of you engaged in a particular field from the broad field of rescuing Jews by Jews in the Holocaust. How did you get involved with this issue? Who would like to be first?
If I may start. Okay.
Yes, please.
So for 24 years, I was in charge of the Righteous Among the Nations program at Yad Vashem, honoring non-Jewish rescuers of Jews. In many rescue stories involving Gentile rescuers, I came across Jews who acted in tandem with non-Jews, and in some cases were the principal organizers of the rescue operation. But while the non-Jewish rescuers received the full honors of the State of Israel via Yad Vashem, the Jewish rescuers in the same story were completely overlooked and forgotten. That aroused my wonder, my curiosity. What was wrong here? How come we neglect our own major rescuers? And so in combination with Chaim Roth, we created a voluntary association to try to persuade Yad Vashem to correct the situation. The honoring of rescuers from amongst our own people, the Jewish people, so as to help to remove the false stain that Jews were totally passive and allowed themselves to be killed without making any efforts at survival, that they went like sheep to the slaughter. And that's how I became involved in that organization. I'm still involved, and we still haven't finished the fight to bring it across so that in Israel, we can teach the children not only about Joseph Trumpeldor, who said, it is good to die for one country, or Hannah Senesh, or Yair Ben Eliezer on Masada, who convinced the people to commit suicide. But maybe to have stories of people like Madeline Dreyfus, of Abraham Polonsky, of Georges Loinger, of Suskind, of Gizi Fleischmann, of Ze'er Wahrhaftig, who saved so many fellow Jews. These are the heroes we have to present to the young generation, including Joseph Trumpeldor, but not only.
Thank you very much. Yes, please, Dalia Ofer, Professor Ofer.
Well, I must say that although I worked on rescue, I was not at all aware on this issue until when I was chairing the Institute of Contemporary Jewry. Chaim Roeg came to me one day, and we had a long talk, and I must contribute it to him. It really arose my awareness, and since then, in my classes, I mean, for many years that I was teaching, and also in talks with people in Yad Vashem, I was raising the issue. I must say that I myself was debating with myself the issue of solidarity, the issue of obligation, and all the issues that came up here. And again, as long as my work really expanded to the ghettos and to families and to everyday life, mostly in Eastern Europe, I found how the combinations are so important, and that for academic reasons, not only for educational reasons, for understanding better the Holocaust and to try and come closer to it, as people like myself, who fortunately never experienced it, or my family, my short family, mother and father never experienced it, I think it is very, very important.
Thank you. Professor Henry?
I would just, like to make 2 points. I agree absolutely with what Mordecai has just said, and I just want to reinforce what he said. I came to this through Philip Howley's book, Lest Innocent Blood Be Shed. And there's no mention of Jewish people there. There's no mention of Oze. There's no mention of any Jews whatsoever. So when I started doing my research, I saw Jewish people at the heart of the rescue. So then I looked in Shaban, another place, Oze, Jewish people. Look on the Swiss border, Mila Racine and Marianne Cohn, these wonderful human beings who sacrificed their lives to save Jews. I became so committed to the idea that I was raised in the Jewish neighborhood in New York with the myth of Jewish passivity, that the Jews had gone to the slaughter like sheep. So that's one of the main reasons that I'm interested in this, is to give the lie to that terrible anti-Semitic myth that it's still alive in our midst. And the other thing is to show that, the other big point I would make is that to show the Jews and the non-Jews working together, bringing together groups, showing what can happen in humanity when groups that are not normally associated with one another are working together. The rescue of Jews in France is the most successful ecumenical activity ever achieved on French soil. So, yes, we need to continue this for many reasons.
Thank you. We still have two of Dr. Hershko. Yes, please.
I would like, yes. My engagement was very, I think, unique. I got acquainted with the issue in 1990 when we were on a diplomatic mission in France. At that time, I wrote my PhD dissertation on another subject while interviewing Jacqueline Keller, the president of CRIF, the umbrella, which is the umbrella organization of the Jewish organizations in France. I was amazed to discover the little known story of the Jewish resistance, which contributed significantly to the rescue of 3/4 of Jews in France. one who was made a BA, MA in the history department, I didn't know anything about the issue. So she recommended that I meet the president of the Jewish Resistance Veterans, Mrs. Rachel Shegam, who was a member of the resistance. Rachel gave me the contact details of Polonsky, and Polonsky gradually compared his archives to me. Thus, I began 10 years of research, exciting meetings with the heroes, the heroines of the Jewish resistance, consulting public and private archives, publishing the book, and struggling for the memory of the Jewish resistance. In 2007, I joined the committee for honoring the Jews who were to Jews in all the countries occupied by the Nazi Germany. I think that the committee indeed promoted the knowledge and consciousness regarding this issue, and that there is still a lot to be done. And I hope that this issue will get its appropriate place in Holocaust research and study. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Professor Raymond Sun, please.
Yes. I have to admit that I was one of those people we're now trying to reach to convince how important this was. I did not know about Jewish rescue until a newspaper reporter called me to give background about a story about a local woman who was actually a Jewish rescuer. And so I was so taken with the idea, I invited this woman to my class, and I got into the subject from there. So it literally, it took the reporter of the local paper to shake me and shake up my world to get me into this. But, I'm glad that they found me.
Thank you so much. Dear friends, unfortunately, our time is very limited. Allow me to thank our distinguished scholars who participated in this roundtable discussion. Professor Patrick Henry, Dr. Tchila Hershkov, Professor Dalia Ofer, Dr. Mordechai Paldiel, Professor Raymond C. Sun. Thank you so much for your attention. All the best.
Well, Gidon, I want to thank you for moderating. We're coming to the very end of the program, and I want to call on Professor Judith Tydor Baumel-Schwartz, the editor of All Our Brothers and Sisters, for concluding remarks. Judith, b'vakasha.
Thank you very much, Alan. I'm going to keep this brief because we're already over our time. And just to tell you that I have been listening to everything that has been said, and I am in awe. I am in awe of the people that we are talking about who put their lives in danger to save Jews, Jews who saved other Jews during the Holocaust. I am in awe of my former teacher, Rabbi Professor Shimon Schwarzfuchs, who I had the privilege of studying with 42 years ago. And I did not know any of these things about him until recently. And I'm in awe of all of you who have spent time in your life writing and researching the stories of these incredible Jews who saved other Jews during the Holocaust. As was written in the chat, there was more than one, but one very major Jewish community that we don't have an article about, and that is Jews who saved Jews in Hungary. And we are very pleased that Aryeh Barnea has sent us a very important article about that subject that we have already disseminated to all of the members of the various English-speaking forums, and we have put on our website. I invite all of you to, those of you who have not yet seen the website of the Finkler Institute of Holocaust Research, to go in, just write Finkler Institute of Holocaust Research at Bar-Ilan, and you'll get in there immediately. And go into forums and look at the forum of Jews Saving Jews. You will see who the incredible people are who are part of this forum. You will see the tremendous work that every single one of them, one of you, so many of you are doing. I see here in the audience friends, and distinguished members and coordinators of other forums of the Finkler Institute. I am so thrilled to see you all here with us today. And I hope that this is just the beginning. I thank Alan Schneider for having come to me several years ago and saying, maybe we can do something together. You remember that meeting, Alan? And look, and from that, we have a book, and we have this conference, and we have a tremendous forum that so many of you are part of. And it's a continuing forum because you're continuing to do research, and we will continue to put articles up on the forum. And maybe one day we'll even be able to put together another book. But meanwhile, I think we need to take a deep breath. I must tell you all that if that book has come out without mistakes, it is because Alan Schneider spent days and nights going through it over and over again to make sure that it was perfect. Alan, I have no words to thank you. I thank all of you for being part. I don't put it in the past tense because we're continuing together, for being part of this incredible, awesome endeavor. It is an adventure. It is a continuous adventure. And those Jews who saved other Jews during the Holocaust deserve that we write about them, we research them, we remember them, we teach about them, we tell about them, and we have conferences about them just like we did today. Thank you all for being here together with us this evening in Israel. Thank you. Good night to you all. I hope to see you all soon at one of the Finkler Institute conferences. Right now, all our conferences are in Zoom, so you can join us from all over the world. And I look forward to you being part of our Finkler Institute family. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Judy. I hope that this discussion has piqued the interest of those who are watching us and those who don't have the book yet, and we encourage you to order the book from Peter Lang Publishers. All of those participating in today's program should have received a discount order form along with the invitation to the program. And if you have not received it, please write to us. You can do so now in the chat or just to World Center at 012.net.il. Or you can write to me personally at aschneider@bneibrith.org. And we'll be happy to send you the order form. I too, like Judy, look forward to seeing you all on the next session that we will have, the next conference. Thank you all for your dedication to this topic. Thank you all.